Welcome to the Sit Down. I'm your man, Rod Love. Hey, look, we have a great show in store for you, but the Sit Down comes on every Monday from 6 to 6:45. The Sit Down is a forum, is a venue for us to have conversation. We invite community organizations to come in and tell us what they're doing so that the audience and the community can know. We have Miss Shaquita Wynn with us.
Hello.
As always, hey, Miss Wynn knows how to get out there at the ground level to hear what's taking place, what's going on, to help and contribute to organizations that want to get the word out, but also looking at the applications that they're using to deliver their services. So, Ms. Wynn, it's good to see you this evening.
Nice to see you too, Mr. Love.
And we also have who everybody's familiar with, and tonight he doesn't have his sombrero on. And I'm talking about Doc Polite, because I'm missing them fedoras, man, that you be wearing. Doc, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. How was your weekend?
Man, my weekend was great, man. I mean, hey, happy belated Father's Day to you.
Yes.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
How was your weekend?
It was good. All my kids called me, so, you know, they know Daddy I don't do gifts and all that kind of stuff. I really don't celebrate a lot of holidays. You know, I celebrate Christmas and stuff for my grandkids, but, you know.
Yeah.
But you know something, Doc, on that note, before we dive into the conversation we're going to have tonight, me and some of my buddies, man, we were sitting around, and it was supposed to be, you know, a little Father's Day get-together. But as we were having our conversation, you know, we thought about it. I know I be fathering year-round.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Doc, I know you father year-round.
Yeah.
And so it just hit us. I mean, we appreciate the, what do you want to call it, the commercial advertisement of Father's Day. But when you fathering year-round,
Father's Day is every day.
Father's Day is every day. So the commercialization of Father's Day didn't faze us at all, because it's who we are, it's what we do. But another good point got brought up, Doc, and the point was to some of those brothers out there, and when I say brothers, I mean cats that are white, black, red, blue, whatever. Those I consider those my brothers. But for those brothers that don't father year round, the commercialization of Father Day is just for them.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
you know what, and you're absolutely right, because, you know, me and my friend Dave, we were talking about this yesterday, and our thing is that we as men, as husbands and fathers, we know what we're supposed to do. We don't need a recognition to be a father. You know what I'm saying? And I have this conversation with my kids all the time. My job is to be your father first. And I'm going to be your father whether you love me or you're mad with me.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you. My job as a father is to be there as sound wisdom and access at this age for you when you need help. It's not, you know, it's not to pamper you or say, oh, you need to recognize me as your daddy and buy me gifts and all of that. It's not necessary for men who know that they are fathers.
Yeah, you're
You
right.
know.
Hey, Doc, you know, and I don't want to deviate too far from what we're going to jump into, but it always brings me back home when I was, man, I think I was like third or fourth grade. I was the one in my family that my mom had to really get with me on a regular basis. And, hey, on a regular basis, out of 5 of us, I was in the middle. And I'll never forget getting one of my report cards. And normally, I didn't get my report cards and run home because I knew what was waiting for me. Good old-fashioned thumping. But I remember this one time, Doc, you know, after all them thumpings that Miss Fannie Mae gave me for behavior, for academics not paying attention. I got this one report card, and man, I was so proud, and my classmates was like, man, why you running home? I was running home to show my mama this report card. Because I remember all the stomping she gave me. And Doc, you said this magic word, man. I get home and I show my mom the report card, and I'm just so doggone happy. I'm like, you know, we grew up not having it all, just like a lot of other folks.
Right.
But I was just wondering, man, what was she going to give me for coming home? My conduct was a little bit better, and my grades, and notice I say a little bit better, and my grades was a little bit better. And man, I was showing my mom and my brothers and sisters, they always were getting good grades. So they were like, look at this boy, look at him. And I was showing my mom, and my mom say, okay, what you want?
Oh,
And I was like, look, look, you don't have to whoop me this time.
See, and Rod, now with the participation generation, they don't understand that.
But
Why
Doc,
should you
gonna-
be rewarded?
good.
Yeah, but Doc,
yes.
here's the hook, and you said it earlier, and that's why I want to bring this thing home. When my mom looked at it, and I was all excited, and then she took it and sat it down on the table, and she said, I'm trying to understand you. You want something for doing what you were supposed to do.
That's like guys that stand up and say, "Well, I take care of my kids."
There you go.
you
Yeah.
supposed to take care of your
That
kids.
part. That part.
Yes.
And then
And they
I
want
always
an
correct them
award.
when they say, "Well, I'm staying home and babysitting the kid." No, you're not babysitting them kids. Them your kids.
Kids.
Them your kids. Them
How
your
you
kids.
babysitting your kids? You supposed to have them.
Hey, see, Doc, you took us off on a tangent about fathers.
Yeah, you know I'm good for that. You know I'm good for that.
Hey, but you know what? I will say this. To all the fathers that may not be fathering year round, hey, happy Father's Day to you.
Yes.
To all the
Yes.
fathers that's fathering year round, keep up the good damn work.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put it out to all fathers, because sometimes we see on the outside what we perceive about a situation with dads, and it may not even be that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
You understand? So we've got to stop this. Anybody can be a daddy, but it takes a special man to be a father, because the relationship that dynamics may be dictating whether or not you're a father or daddy, and there's a lot of that going on. But I digress.
Hey, well, you know what? Okay, we finna cut, because we can take this and make a
Yeah.
whole new show
A
of it.
whole new show.
Hey, but you know what we want to jump into as we talk about the sit down is a forum to provide information, dig deep into communities, look at who's doing what, what's needed.
Yes.
Well, there's something, and Doc, I'm gonna defer to you. I'm gonna pass the baton. I want you to give the update on the latest and breaking news that's taking place.
Well, one of the things we had come out today is the information about the Surgeon General wanting to put a warning label on social media, and because of that, it made the news, and that's a game changer. He's talking about putting a warning and enforcing a warning system on the impact of the mental health of children that may be caused by
Doc.
social media.
Doc,
So
I think we need to slow down a little bit before we get that far ahead, because when you said United States Surgeon General, a lot of people hear the title but don't know what that person's responsibilities are. And when you talk about the United States Surgeon General, this is the head person for the United States of America that is the leading authority and director, if you would, for public health.
So each president during their term are allowed to select and appoint a U.S. Surgeon General. He represents the government's interaction within the healthcare field, and that's the administration's go-to or point man. And this right now is General Vivek Murthy. And Monday he called on Congress to put a tobacco-style warning for visitors to social media.
What you call it, Doc? Tobacco style?
Yeah, that's what they saying. The news is saying tobacco style. on the pack of cigarettes, it warns you, warning this
Yes.
cigarettes can be bad for your health. So he's wanting that type of labeling to go to warn people. And you know, the unique thing about it is there's a generational disconnect with the concerns of social media between my generation, the generation after me, and then the present generations. See, we didn't experience the things as children that these kids are dealing with. And when it in regards to social media, you know, we don't have that experience. When we got bullied, it was because usually we said something in school and there was a fight after school.
Yep.
Or somebody went and told somebody we said something about them. Then there was a
Doc,
fight
you hit
after
it.
school.
And it was a fight. It was something
Right.
that people can get up from
Yes,
and
and
live
keep it- yes.
live to tell another day. Hey, before we keep on diving into this, if you want to join the conversation, the phone number to the sit down is 321-483-7002. Once again, the phone number, if you want to join into this conversation, the phone number is area code 321-483-7002. I'm sorry, Doc, back to you.
So, you know, we're dealing with a different set of values when it comes to our children's mental health. And some of the things that they're experiencing are catamount to PTSD in many ways. You know, and so that's why they're coming out with this warning. Because the fact is that kids now are heavily impacted mentally by the results of social media. Just think about how easy it is to out someone. Okay, one of the things is,
But it doesn't even have to be true, Doc.
what? No, it doesn't. That's like I don't know if you guys are familiar with sextortion.
Well,
So what
I will
sextortion
tell you,
is-
the state of Florida some years ago created a law, you know, because you had folk that had relationships with one another. Relationships went sour, and they divulged
Information or
personal pictures and videos, and they used it to embarrass or extort. And so now there's a law in the book that you can't do that.
Exactly. It's there, but guess what's taking place? This is how the scam goes. The person on the other end will contact a boy or girl, right? And they'll pretend to be the opposite sex, get them interested, and
Oh, you
talking
talking
to them.
catfishing now, man.
Yeah, and basically catfishing them. They'll say, you know, I want to see some nudes of you. Here's one of me. Okay? Now, this takes place. It's grooming. And so they get closer and closer, and the kid, the person being catfished finally gives in and gives them the pictures or allow them to see them, and they're doing screen captures. Then they flip it on them and say, if you don't send me $10,000-$15,000, I'm gonna release this on social media, on the internet. And these kids are killing themselves in response to this.
But
Recently
it-
they had a
but-
case where this thing happened, and they caught it was two guys extorting this teen, and he ended up killing himself. So they charged them with murder. But
it
many
comes back
times
down
they
to-
don't get caught.
And Ms. Wynn, let me ask you, because we're living in an era, Doc, that government is unfortunately regulating, which I'm sort of like 50-50 on this thing, because if parents won't do it at home, what's the safety net? But I know your kids are grown now, and social media was around when they were coming up. How did you manage that as a parent?
But you know, when they were coming up, it wasn't the different social media that's out now. I think it was one back then, which was popular. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like, let me see your phone. Let me see your phone. And plus, they didn't get phones till they were later almost in high school.
Oh, okay.
So we had that little flip phone. So with the flip phone, wasn't a lot of internet on there. But we did have a home computer where they can still go on. But with the home computer, I was able to see what sites they was visiting and what they were doing.
See, Doc knows, I'm a little wild with this, and you know my kids too. When my kids, got cell phones because we wanted to be able to manage them, you know, on our pickups, we want them to have something, so when we call them, say, hey, are you where you're supposed to be? And this is my kids, you know, probably getting phones, maybe 10 years old or something, but one of the rules that I made, and you can laugh at it if you want to, because I really want to know what's going on, one of the part of the rules when my kids got phones, Doc, when I walked in the room, they knew, hey, do this.
Hands up.
Hey, because I want to see the phone. I want to see what's on it, where you at.
Yeah.
And my kids knew when I walked in that room, because if they started doing this, hey, I'm digging deep. I'm digging deep.
And that's what my,
you know,
my
I'm gonna share this. My view on it is, I don't believe kids should have phones
Well,
because
that's a good
I look at it this way: with the same concerns you have about a 12-year-old driving a car, and why don't we let 12-year-olds drive cars?
well,
not
we don't.
mature enough.
Well, not mature enough. I don't think reactive skills. But if you ask somebody from the country, because one of my
they
buddies,
start early.
they
Yeah,
start
on them
early.
dirt roads.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but ain't nothing out there on the country road. I did that too. My dad's from Live Oak. Hey, and what nothing. My grandmother was still driving at 90. She lived out in the rural. The only place she drove was to church, but she drove. She never had a license. But she
Yeah. Hey, but you know what? Because before we know it, we're gonna look up and we're gonna really get into this thing, and it's gonna be time to go. Doc, you brought up some real interesting points and data when we talk about the Surgeon General actually, and I'm wondering how do they put a label on social media? But we'll get back to that. But Doc,
Well-
some of the things that you brought up, man, I think are real interesting. Increased anxiety and depression based on being on this social media. Doc, can you speak to that?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard for adults to deal with social media. You know how much bullying goes on with adults? A lot of it. A lot of it goes on.
Wow.
I've been listen. I've been threatened numerous times on social media.
You solicit getting threatened.
And no, but trust me, Doc Gibb is good as he gets. See, I made people show up for me. You understand? So you know it. The few recipients of that response have understood that. But the fact is that you should be able to freely say what you want to say. It wasn't. I don't pick at people. It's, you know, people get offended because you don't agree with them, or you say
don't like
something against somebody they like, and they take it the wrong way, and they all up in arms. And we're seeing that kind of bullying going on with District 5 right now. If you've been following Facebook and this race that takes place tomorrow, you'll see how people are bullying both candidates. So if adults can't, who should be much more emotionally mature, can't handle themselves, what do we expect from 12, 13, and 14-year-olds?
Yeah. So Doc, when we talk about social media and children's mental health, some of the key facts: increased anxiety and depression. Statistics. I mean, we're talking about studies indicate a significant increase in anxiety and depression among children who spend more time on social media. I mean, you see young people from the time they go to school to when they go to bed at night on TikTok. Doc, is Snapchat still around and all that kind of stuff?
No, Snapchat's not around. TikTok is. Instagram.
Oh, what happened to Snapchat?
I think that was back in the.
No, it's still around. It's still around.
It's probably not as popular as it used to be.
It's not popular with adults, but them kids still Snapchat
Oh.
because the kids don't do Facebook.
Well, you know, I'm like you, Doc, with the cell phones. Look like once the child gets a phone, all the outdoor activity come to a cease.
But you know what? I hear Doc saying he doesn't like the fact that kids get cell phones, but I also believe, and this is how, you know, me and my wife did with our children. I mean, we still got one that's going to be a senior next year. But here's the worst thing you can do. Don't expose your children to social media, and then you look up and they're adults and you never managed or governed or even taught them how to manage social media. So now they're adults. You really, per se, can't tell them what to do.
Yes.
And now they're out there doing everything that they think they want to do on social media.
And
So,
shouldn't be doing.
so we eased our kids, I think, by the 11th grade, started letting them see what social media is on their phones. Starting to let them have a social media account. Taught them that, you know, once it's out there, you can't get it
Get
back.
back, yes. That's right there.
You teach them about the appropriateness of what you do. You talk to them about not being impulsive with what you say on social media, because once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be a class.
You're right.
A social media class.
Well,
The do's and the don'ts.
it should be, because I don't, and it's not the parents' fault. They just come from a different era than the social media era. A lot of them don't understand the anxiety, the depression, the feeling that they're isolated. Some of these kids don't know how to even be in a social gathering.
Doc, what about the development of sleep disorders too?
Right.
Because these kids
Exactly,
spend so much
anxiety, and they can't sleep because they're worried about what was posted, or
Right.
they're worried about what their peers think.
Yeah.
You know, and people get on there, and oftentimes there's no restraint in and consideration of how a person feels. People will say things to you on social media they know they wouldn't dare say to you, person to person.
You know what, Ms. Wynn, and Doc, Ms. Wynn, you hit a good point, and I agree with you 100%. I do believe there needs to be classes, mandatory classes,
Yes.
that educate young people about social media, because you can be impulsive, you can make some mistakes, especially when it comes down to either viewing inappropriate content or being a contributor to it.
Well, not only that, I think the social media goes a flow farther than that. The kids have to remember, if you're applying for a job,
Yeah.
you know, some of these corporations look to see if you have a social media. What are you posting out there on social media?
Exactly, and that's an excellent point, because who would want to be 42 and get dinged for something that they said on social media when they were 16?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And you see that happening as well.
But you know, but you know what, Doc, and this is right up your alleyway. I think we've all said something in the past when we were younger. I think now the response to some of the things that we no longer believe or feel is, what you laughing about, Doc?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about my loose lips. You think they loose now? Man.
But you get my point, Doc. I mean, there are things, and you know, I'm ready more than ever, because if somebody said, "Well, man, shoot, a few years ago you said something, you said this." Well, I'm not the same man I
There
was
you
a few years ago.
But see, you're held to a standard that if it was no social media, you'd be able to move on and not have that follow you.
But
You get
Doc,
what I'm saying?
But you're talking about social media. Let's don't even talk about social media in this concept, because we have a lot of politicians, if you would, that this ain't got nothing to do with social media. They're doing news interviews for journalistic purposes, and they're saying something last year, and then when you present and say, "Well, hold up, last year you said you didn't believe in this, and it wasn't about social media platforms. This is what you were informing the news based on who you are and what your platform is." And then fast forward a year, and you act like that was never said until they rewind it on you.
Exactly.
Somebody go dig it and bring it back up.
Well, and again, and it's creating and showing that we have a growing number of sociopaths, not psychopaths, but sociopaths, who will do, say, and be anything to get their way.
But Doc, this social media piece, when you talk about the Surgeon General issuing a warning label, I mean, this thing is so wide and vast. For example, when we talk about body image issues, social media influences often promotes unrealistic body standards, leading to body dissatisfaction of folks.
Body dysmorphia.
You're right.
And so, you got a girl that weighs 112 pounds standing 5'10". Now that's real thin. But in her mind, she's 200 pounds.
Good, right.
So
right.
now she's bulimic, okay, borderline anorexic, and that leads to other health and mental problems.
What about the time of staying on social media, just searching and paying attention to what everybody else is doing? And Miss Wynn, you mentioned this earlier, where young people are not going outside shooting any baskets anymore, playing soccer.
No, they're not.
You see young people sitting and what do you call it? When you're working and you're not moving. What is it? Sedation, Doc? What is it called?
What, sedentary?
Sedentary. Yeah. So now you got kids sitting at home on this all the time, and it's not healthy.
And this the this the fattest generation of kids I ever seen in my life.
But if you notice,
a kid that's
everywhere
14
you
should
go-
not weigh 250 pounds.
Yeah. You notice everywhere you go, everybody just had their head down. They could be walking and got their head down. And it's
Yep,
like,
they walk.
excuse me. And then they look up. You almost bumped into me because you got your head down. You're not
No.
looking.
At family gatherings, all the kids on the phone and they texting
Yeah.
each other
Yes.
instead of talking.
You're right.
You know?
Yes. And it's so
And-
funny you said that my granddaughter was in her room, I was in my living room, and she called me on the phone. I'm looking,
Hey, but my kids know.
I'm like,
My kids know. If you in the house with me, you better not text me at all.
And
I
see-
picked that phone up. I said, if you don't, you know what? and come out here, I know something.
You gotta use a little thread in
Yeah.
there.
I was like, girl, don't you ever call me and you right here in the house.
That was one of the things that my kids didn't get. They were old enough to get phones when they got in high school, because me and their mom had phones, but that was a no-no. We weren't they couldn't have cell phones.
Hey,
Just
Doc,
bottom line.
Here's something right up your alleyway, and Miss Wynn, I know you know a lot about it, but I mean, when we had these conversations about social media, think about how it contributes to antisocial behavior.
Yes.
Not only that, criminal activity, coordinated criminal activity. Look at these kids doing these smash and grabs.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You know, so it gives them vehicles a lot of times to enter social areas or groups that they may not have in the past been able to connect with.
But then on the flip side of it too, sometimes when it comes to criminal activity for law enforcement, they use that in a positive way to find out where the person was. So it's a good and it's a bad.
Yeah, but you know, social media also does this. Yeah, you familiar with FOMO, Doc?
Yeah, fear of missing out.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Doc think he just so hip with
Yep, they scared they're gonna miss something. So guess what? Now they sneaking out the window,
Yeah.
taking the family car, get into a crash at 2:00 in the morning. The parents think that they're in the room. Here comes the knock. Hey, your kid's dead. You think your kid's in there in the room? They're out there laid out on the sidewalk, on the highway.
But
Because
you know what? We talked a lot about a lot of the negatives of social media, and also once again, if you're watching the show,
and
the
let me
breaking
say
news,
let me say one more thing before we swing it. I want to point this out. This social media and the communication through cell phones and such has introduced voices in your child's life that can counter what the parents are teaching and saying, and that's a big problem. You understand? That has peer pressure is super hyped up now. because all your friends can get on there and tell you, go do this, go do this. You ain't cool if you ain't with us. We going to do shoplifting. You ain't cool if you ain't down.
And that's one of the topics of the day. The late and breaking news is the fact that the United States, not the local state
government.
surgeon, not a local municipality, but the United States Surgeon General has declared that a warning label should be placed on social media.
Well, I always
And-
thought it should be coming from the parent need to teach their child. Why do we have government to get involved?
So you're absolutely, I agree with you, but
We
if
need-
gotta
we need
get
to
a
have
point
mandatory,
such as this,
parenting
then the
class
point
in this
case
country
is
first.
the fact that for government to go this far, because remember, the state of Florida, last legislative session was moving forward, and I'm not sure whether or not it passed, that they were putting the onus on social media platforms that they had to validate and get parents' permission for, I think, any kid 14 or 15 years old. We have to go back and check and see if it passed. But, come on, let's face it.
So, but anyway, let's swing over to how do we address this? How do we start to address this? What are some things that need to happen? Number one is more involvement with parents. Parents need to educate themselves as to what harm they need to learn the symptoms.
Doc, if if we could be there like yesterday, then you wouldn't have a Surgeon General doing what he did
Right,
today.
right.
You wouldn't have the state of Florida doing what it's doing. So it's a problem. And Doc, when you say, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Well, one of the things, and Ms. Queek, you said this earlier from the standpoint that I truly believe that, yes, we need to mandate classes for young people early so that they know and understand
Yes.
the dangers of social media, but also going to what Doc's point in case is, what's some of the strengths and benefits of it as well. And Doc, the first thing I would say off the top of my head is parents. I mean, we see government stepping in, but parents need to set limits.
Yes.
Right. Right. And they've got to be involved. They have to be involved because kids, y'all know I got 1,000 stories to tell you. And one of them is when I was a teenager, I put nude pictures up in my bedroom. Now, in a black household, you can't lock the door. Well, when I was growing up, it wasn't no such thing. And my mom came in there and she saw them. She told me to take them down. Okay? And I was like, yeah. And I wouldn't take them down.
Hang on, you said yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't smack
Hang on,
you.
because I didn't even know the word yeah when I was growing up. But go ahead, Doc.
So
Go ahead.
she just went off. But she got me, Rod. She went in her room and called my grandma. And my grandma came over there and she wanted them grandma with the hands on the hips. And she said, N-word, if you don't take them posters down, I'm gonna beat the life out of you. Your mama ain't gonna have to. And I was terrified of my grandmother. So guess what?
You
The
took them
posters
down.
came. The posters came down.
But that was parent engagement. That was parent engagement.
Exactly.
That's setting limits.
But you know, I share that because the thing is, a lot of times the child doesn't understand the gravity. I know now that one of the things they were worried about was me sexualizing women and not seeing women as humans, because some men grow up because they objectified women and all they see them for is sex.
But
They
the other
didn't want
point
me
in
to-
case of that, Doc, is the fact that you got a lot of young people that can't distinguish
Right.
reality
Right.
from fiction.
And that's my point
That's
exactly.
the problem.
And you need those parents there. The parents need to know the impact of what social media can do to that child so they can explain and not only explain but understand, help the child understand the ramifications of social media in a negative aspect. So they have to be involved. They must be involved in monitoring and helping that child even understand what they're seeing on social media.
So before the show's over, let's give parents some of the tools. Ms. Wynn, what's some of the things that you
I was going to say, we have to find a solution with some type of parenting class, because it's some parents out there that needs to take this class too, because they're more than what these kids are.
You're right, you're right.
It's like, whoa, do you know the boundaries?
So one of the solutions is, kids being educated and going through some training courses about social media, parents being engaged and doing the same
Yes,
thing.
yes.
But the other part of it too is encouraging some offline activities. We're
Yes.
talking about kids being in the house on this phone all the time.
Yes, yes.
Man, kick them out in the backyard.
There
Make
you
them
go.
go do something,
Yes.
some kind of physical activities. We're talking about education. I mean, that is all encompassing, educating young people, but also the parents at the same time. One of the keys, monitor.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Put that
who
parent-
who are your children's closest friends who
Friends,
can
yeah.
influence them?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure, when we grew up, if you weren't from a good family, we couldn't play with you.
Yeah, yeah. But Doc, you also, your parents knew who your friends were.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of that was instilled in us as we were growing up. We try to instill it in our kids.
But that's what raising-
then
yeah.
those kids' friends sometimes don't have the same
Yeah,
value.
yeah.
And
But we see it as parents. We see it now. We be looking and saying, hold up. Little Tommy, we need to have a conversation.
Yes.
Or you talk to your children and say, hey, who's little Tommy,
Thank
mom
that.
and dad? And, I ain't gonna lie, I asked the question. What do they do?
Yeah.
I started doing, I started giving the what do you call it, Doc? The third degree?
Yep. Interview them.
Listen, I can attest to that. Miss Love did that with my girl. Wait a minute, hold on. Who's this right here?
Yeah.
And I used to tell the girls, listen, he did it with my girl, so he definitely gonna do it with you.
Without a doubt. And one of the other things, fostering open communication.
Yes, that's the key.
I know it took me a while for my daughters to understand, okay, dad's gonna be dad, because I was rigid. And I know they would try, Doc, you know how them girls think they slicker than you? Hey, they just don't know.
I used to tell my kid, what you do in the dark
Will come to light.
will come to light. You
You
best
know,
to believe.
And that's so true. You don't expect you expect your child to kind of, okay, I'm gonna push the boundaries. Most kids are gonna push the boundaries because they want to find out what's what. Okay, it might be a number of things. It's very rare that a child doesn't find something to test their parents or the limits of what they're allowed to do. I think we all go through that process. But, it's finding out who you are. It's part of finding out who you are and what you're
Yeah.
capable of.
Yeah.
But we've got to support the children now because they're dealing with something that can potentially follow them the rest of their
Yeah.
life. And that's the difference for us.
Yeah.
We are not dealing with things from our past because it's on social media. But now you got it. Rod, they used to tell us, oh, this is going to go on your permanent record. And now you really do have a permanent record
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
because
Yeah.
you can't delete the internet.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
You're right. You're right.
And so this is harmful for that kid's long-term development, not just as a teen. Think if this child gets written up on social media or exposed on social media, this thing is out there and it's gonna follow them
Yeah.
wherever they go. They could be 95. Hey, you
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
kid that did this. I saw it on TikTok.
Yeah. And you know what, Doc, Ms. Wynn, I think it comes back full circle, and we've been saying this over and over again, and I would ask that our listening audience, and our audience is smart, our audience is on top of it. We're having conversations about the need to educate young people, children about social media,
Yes.
but we're also coming back full circle and saying, there will be no need for government intervention if parents and guardians were as actively engaged in it. But the truth of the matter is, man, a lot of parents and guardians don't have a playbook for how you teach your children, because a lot of parents hadn't been given, they don't know how to manage this
Well,
stuff.
and a lot of those parents are grandparents.
Yeah, but
And
we
you
got some
gotta
grandparents
think about the
that's
gravity.
early 30s and
Yeah, you.
You know, you got to think about the gravity of what's out there. Right now, readily, a child can sit at any computer
Yeah.
and access porn. We couldn't get porn. If we saw a Playboy book when I was a kid, oh man, that was the talk for the whole summer. If you saw one centerfold. But now,
It's
these
too
kids
much
are
out.
bombarded with it. They're
Yeah.
pressured with the idea of what is sexuality,
Yeah.
and they are being groomed for gender dysmorphication and all of these other things that they are not mature enough to handle. They don't
Yeah.
have the emotional maturity to handle a lot of decisions. You don't want a 10-year-old deciding whether she should have oral sex, or a 10-year-old deciding if he should have sex with another boy.
Well,
You don't want that. Why? Because they don't have the mental capacity to understand the gravity of their choice.
well, and we're talking mental health too on this.
Yeah.
What you about to say, Ms.
And,
Flynn?
and we know that because we know that kids develop in different stages.
You're right.
You're right.
Girls
You're right.
develop much more faster than boys do, mentally and emotionally.
I was gonna put a call out to, anyone that is out, any of our callers that is out, that can come in and visit us and discuss more of what education,
Yeah.
what kind of
Yeah,
classes
that
will
would be-
look like.
Yeah, we need to get that
do
because
Yeah.
we can get the up-to-date information from people who are actually on the ground and encountering this effect that social media is having on the population that they serve. Because they see
What
it.
about this? What about this? Because we got 4 minutes left, and since nobody else like to be the clock keeper, the timekeeper, I'm gonna make sure I'm the timekeeper. But if there's an expert out there that is familiar with training on the protections, if you would, on social media, we invite you to come on in and be on the sit down with us so that you can educate our audience, you can educate parents,
Yeah.
young, and then to those organizations that are out there providing services to kids. Once we get that expert as part of your program, wouldn't be a bad idea to have those young people
Oh, yes.
that's
Right.
watching that show.
Yes.
Right.
And then once that show concludes, you can continue to have your conversation with them.
Right, because we number one, we've got to stop demonizing many of the things that we try to keep kids from knowing. Because the cat's out the bag. We need to be having
Yeah,
conversations
find a way.
about mental health. We need to be having conversations about sexuality. What is healthy
Yeah.
Yeah,
versus, exploitive. They need to know the difference.
yeah, you're right. You're
And the
right.
You know-
mystique of it is what makes people search for it even more.
Yep, and the sad thing is, a lot of these kids know more about sexuality than their parents do. I kid you not.
And you're probably right, Doc.
Internet,
You're probably right.
That
And-
internet,
Yeah, because they're out there, they're telling each other, they're sharing. Hey, look at this, look at that. You got 15-year-olds trying to date 40-year-old women.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
all
let
of
me
this
say
kind of stuff.
this, because this is one of the other, before we sign off, this is why it pays for you to invest in the knowing who you're voting for.
Yep.
Do your homework. Doc, you alluded to it. I know this is in your neck of the woods, because you're a City of Orlando hometown native.
Yep.
But there's an election that's taking place tomorrow in the City of Orlando, District 5. Don't sit on your hands. You have the right to get out to vote if you haven't already voted. Get out, find out about the candidate, and go vote.
absolutely.
Yeah,
vote.
and don't be so easily swayed by what you read on social media
Right.
and
You're right.
and in the media, because what it often does, it will always bring the bad news before it gives the good news.
You're right.
That's just the nature of people. We are all, we, in American media, they love to build you up, then they're gonna tear you down.
Almost like
We-
is that
we've seen
AI
that cycle
coming out on that
repeatedly.
candidate?
Yeah.
You know,
You
in
thinking, is this the
5
candidate or
years,
is this AI?
you know,
Yeah.
I always think about poor Britney Spears. They used to remember they loved her like they do Taylor Swift now. Now she's psycho, and they talk about her doing crazy stuff and all of this, and what's wrong with her and all of this. Look at Wendy Williams. And the examples go on, how we boost people up, and then as a nation we tear them down.
Hey, let me say this to our listening audience, because we're like 20 seconds from concluding. Hey, the sit down is on every Monday from 6 to 6:45. If you have a community-based organization and you want to bring some information and education to the forefront, you're welcome to contact us. Hey, the sit down will be back to you next Monday at 6 p.m.
Hey,
Dr. Polite want to thank
Hey,
you.
Queen,
Ms. Williams want to
Queen,
thank you. and
you
look
see,
forward to seeing you.
hey, Queen, you see, he keep me on the leash, right?
Hey, yeah, he the executive producer, and he don't even watch the clock. Hey, we'll see you next week on the sit down. Love to have you.